Today, in a part of the world that has helped spark 3 wars, tens of thousands of troops are patrolling the streets. They are Indian government forces in Indian-controlled Kashmir. And it's been 4 days since the Indian government changed the status of Kashmir, which is India's only Muslim-majority region. Up until this week, Kashmir had a large degree of autonomy. The government's decision has sparked protests over a long-disputed area claimed by both India and Pakistan, where fighting has killed tens of thousands of people over the last few decades. Today in Kashmir, the streets are empty. Soldiers enforce a strict military curfew. Hundreds have been arrested. Fear has driven many inside, and many others are trying to leave but are stuck with limited transport.
The government made the situation worse. There are no arrangements for us to leave, nor is there any arrangement for food. We have been lying here, hungry.
In an unprecedented clampdown, India has blocked internet and phone in the primarily Muslim region. And today, Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi called this, quote, the beginning of a new era.
I and the whole nation have taken a historic decision, an arrangement in which our brothers and sisters from Jammu Kashmir and Ladakh had been deprived of their rights, which have been a great obstacle in their development, has been removed as a result of all our efforts.
Well, it's been almost a year since Article 370 and 35A was revoked, an article that was acting as a bridge in between Jammu and Kashmir and rest of the India was revoked on August 5th, 2019. Hey guys, I'm your host Muzammil Maqbool, and I welcome you to another episode of Plain Talk with MMB. And on today's episode, we will talk about full year review after the abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. Just to remind you, this is the part A we are going to discuss with a firebrand journalist from Kashmir. He's a human rights activist and also a debater. He's also a philanthropist beyond our imaginations, Peer Viqar al-Islam. Let's welcome him. Peer Viqar, thank you so much for being with me on Plain Talk. It's really an honor to have you on my show.
Thank you, Muzammil. It's indeed an honor for me to be part of this show, and I have heard, and I have also witnessed. I've heard it, and I think it's one of the most extraordinary shows I could say that's happening from Kashmir. Unique, so rare, and I hope other people are inspired by Plain Talk and we can see more of such content coming out from Kashmir because, this can change a lot of things. It can give a broader and wider perspective of what is happening in Kashmir to the outer world.
Absolutely. My first question is related to Article 370. 1 year since abrogation of Article 370 and 35A in the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. Tell our listeners what have we lost in terms of Article 370 and especially in terms of 35A till now.
There is this narrative building going on that it was a special status for Jammu and Kashmir, which is untrue. Actually, this was a special provision for the Indian Constitution to, have an extension in Jammu and Kashmir. Otherwise, as per the instrument of accession, you had only 4 things that could be, governed by central government of India or the federal government of India. Otherwise, other parts of the government or departments or sectors of the government could not be, run by center directly. They had to go through the J&K Legislative Assembly to extend other bills related to communication, foreign affairs, defense. These were some of the provisions that could be, under the instrument of accession, because when we talk about governments or in a federal setup, only paperwork works. You cannot do anything except if it is not notified through a paper. So in instrument of accession, they could not have done that. So in 1953, they needed a different provision that came in shape of Article 370, and they, through presidential order, needed to amend the Indian Constitution and give scope to certain provisions or extend the Constitution of India in Jammu and Kashmir, because Jammu and Kashmir had its own constitution.
Absolutely.
So 2 constitutions cannot work simultaneously. So there was this special need, the provision that was required by law, by Constitution itself, to to have an extension to be able to extend bills to Jammu and Kashmir and amend in J&K constitution or facilitate new laws, which could not have happened unless 370 would have been there, or 35A precisely, which governs the citizen, which tells us who is the citizen of Jammu and Kashmir, what rights a person has. So I would say that it's unfortunate that there is this narrative or rhetoric that Jammu and Kashmir has any special status. It doesn't. The history is witness to Article 370 facilitating Indian government to implement new laws or extend union laws in Kashmir.
Absolutely.
So this saying that we had any special status is not right. It was the Indian government that had a special provision in constitution to extend certain laws like PODA, TADA, PSA. These laws are not J&K constitution laws. These were, brought by the extension of Article 370 in J&K's constitution.
Absolutely. And a lot of people are talking about Article 370, but somehow they are not stressing on the main article, which was here in 35A. Which we have lost from last 1 year. So in layman's language, to understand our listeners, what have we lost in terms of 35A? If you could elaborate, please, on that.
See, the first and foremost is the geographical change, and the second are the political promises that were made at the time of instrument of accession when it was signed. There was they only signed because there were certain political powers, political promises made. The first and foremost was political autonomy, that Jammu and Kashmir's people, or the elected government, which is a representative democracy, will define or decide for Jammu and Kashmir as a state. No external power or union would decide in our matters. No external power or union will define who is a citizen of Jammu and Kashmir or who is not. Absolute power will remain with the people of Kashmir to decide on matters, internal affairs of Kashmir. External affairs were defined by India, external policies, foreign policies, because of instrument of accession. They had to be defined or governed or controlled by the Indian government. But internal affairs, internal matters, or displacement of resources, natural resources or otherwise, it was in hands of Jammu and Kashmir government, which is supposedly had to be elected. But what we have lost is not just geographical change. We also lost on ecological front. Like our resources can be used. Like recently, if you look at the power, the electricity charges that will be now newly imposed.
It will be privatized as well.
Yeah, it will be privatized. You are manufacturing electricity, but you are buying it at a higher cost now.
True.
So we are not actually gaining, we're losing. One of the reasons that they were able to do it, what they did is they went for the GST bill. They implemented GST. We were not supposed to be paying GST as per the earlier arrangements.
Absolutely.
But once they dissolved part of 35A, which helped us, 35A restricted GST to be implied in or implemented in Jammu and Kashmir. So they tested their waters, and they saw that there is a scope to go further. And now what we have been seeing is almost $100 billion have been lost in trade and business in Jammu and Kashmir since abrogation of Article 370. So instant implications and long-term implications are to the peace. If you look at what has been the recent developments in Galwan Valley, China has, intruded into Kashmir's territory, Jammu Kashmir's territory, that's Ladakh. It is uninvited, but it was invited by this move because this is unilateral move by India, and it was India which took the matter to UN and made it a bilateral issue with Pakistan.
Yeah.
So when you are doing unilateral decisions, then you will have implications from your neighbors. They will come in.
Absolutely, and I'm glad you picked it up. This was my next question. So moving ahead to the Galwan standoff, do you think this abrogation has created a third front, like China openly claiming Ladakh as their own territory? Not only this, if we will talk about the PLA, they have also moved their forces towards Uttarakhand border as well.
Not just Uttarakhand, as per my research, at 7 places they have intruded.
Absolutely.
They have also said it. One of their defense analysts said it on a TV channel that because of a revocation of Article 370, they had a justification to, make this intrusion into the Jammu and Kashmir territory. Saying that China was not part of this conundrum, that is wrong, because China was always there. It had Aksai Chin, it had fought Sino-Indian War, and it was on our territory. It was not, in any other place. It was just here in Kashmir, which is part of Kashmir, which was part of our map, Aksai Chin. So they were always part, but they were the unofficial guests who were not recognized or not still recognized. But now the document that kept them unofficial has been removed by India, and now they are, they are aiming high. They want to be stakeholders now by intruding inside the territory. This is after Sino War in 1962. Since then, they have not done any major intrusions from this part, which is Galwan, and it gets linked to Aksai Chin. So some say it is because they have the CPEC route from there, but some say it is because they want to create that regional hegemony and, contest territories with India now, physically, rather on rhetoric or narratives or, just diplomatic pressures. Now they are going on full-out war, or you could say a mini war with India on the territorial integrity. Like they are saying that, okay, this wasn't our territory until you revoke 370, but once you revoke 370, we also revoke all those treaties that were prior to 370, that were prior to abrogation of 370, because if you look at the recent treaties, they had a lot of treaties with India in terms of border tranquility and border peace. They had a lot of those treaties. I guess 7 treaties were signed with India in recent past that maintained the LAC, line of actual control, with India and China. But now, because of abrogation of 370, there has been a geographical implication because India unilaterally contests China's held territories also. And there were some remarks made by Indian diplomats or Indian politicians that they will go for POK. So if you look at POK, there is also one territory that Pakistan has, given control to China on that territory. Part of northern part of Ladakh, which is being contested. It's beyond Galwan, which was given, I guess 15% of the land is with China. That has been given by 10% or something, has been given by Pakistan to China to control it. So when you say that you claim all those territories that are with Pakistan, that are with China, you are inviting them for trouble. Because until now, you had not made that claim, because Article 370 or 35A maintained that this is a disputed territory. There is a resolution in UN that needs to be implemented. Once that is implemented, now what happens is people are failing to understand a very key point here. When you get Indian citizens that are Indian domicile holders to Jammu and Kashmir and give them equal rights or citizenship here, the future referendum, which is now not possible in this situation, which India openly rejects by abrogating 370. But let's suppose if UN resolution is implemented, you have changed the seasons. Now you have changed the referendum dynamics. Now your people will be voting, and then the results cannot be sorted, because until now Article 370 restricted. Only Jammu and Kashmir people could have voted in the referendum. Across the border or this side. Similarly, in Pakistan, they have done this they have created this, because of CPEC, they have made Gilgit a province, which has also changed it. But they have not taken out, they are not adding up, possibly, they are not giving domicile rights to other people in Gilgit.
They have not, yes.
But here, in the part that is controlled by India, they are giving domicile certificates to non-locals just because they stayed here for some time. So that means the future possibility of everlasting peace is gone, because now UN will not be able to hold referendum here. They will not be able to implement that referendum here in the part that's controlled by India, because now there is a mixed population. There are settlers coming in. It's sort of, we can use the word settlers, who have equal rights I mean, they can vote here in normal elections. They can also vote in any possible referendum in future. And that will alter the results. That will not be a true result in future. So what can happen is, because there was only one possibility that we saw, is that UN resolution. Even the separatists, mainstream leaders have been, being vocal, or have been, aiming, or have been asking or demanding for that resolution. If you look at, a lot of leaders have, made their parties just because of this bilateral agreement between India and Pakistan in UN. They had been saying that these people should talk because they have this resolution in UN. But now that resolution seems to fall out. It seems to be not happening. And then what can happen? These are two nuclear states. There is no other possible solution. Musharraf came up with 4 points that also didn't work. It was rejected by a lot of people. Though it had a greater acceptance because of Vajpayee as well. But if you see that there is no possible, outcome of all these on-ground the on-ground situation says that there is no possible outcome. The only possible outcome was UN. But now, because of this bilateral decision, UN is in the trash. UN resolution has been trashed.
Absolutely.
So it has a very huge implication on future peace.
Absolutely. And how do you see this political movement? You talked about domicile certificates. Around 4 lakh domicile certificates were issued in 1 month. So keeping that pace in mind, I think in the next 4 years, there will be a lot of people who will be settling down in Jammu and Kashmir, especially.
You have to see Jammu and Kashmir is not an industrial setup. It's not an industrial setup that it is capable of holding so many people.
It is not
coming in.
Yes.
The influx of too many people cannot be handled by. It will just break down the system. You are not able to give basic rights to people who have been living here from last 70 years.
True.
What will you do to people? Like, you don't have a basic facility like 4G in 21st century for the people who have been living here for 70 years. So if I think they're bringing sacrificial lambs who will regret coming here, or who will regret getting these domicile certificates, because this is just paper. There are no amenities, no facilities, no setup, no infrastructure for holding such a large population. You're giving away these, these are papers. This is not going to really do anything on ground, and it will affect Jammu. It will not affect Kashmir that much,
yes.
Because no one is going to come to Kashmir. Even if I give you a villa in Syria right now, you wouldn't just go and say, yeah, Viqar, I'm going to take it up. You'll not take it up. So what I'm saying is, don't make these people sacrificial lambs and send them to Kashmir, or for just BJP's narrative that they have integrated Kashmir with India. Forced integration will not help. If you are if you are a democracy, you cannot act like a dictatorship. They cannot. I have always maintained that the will of the people has not been ascertained. Because rest of the India is supposedly a democracy, you cannot run a dictatorship here. It will implode. Once people, once you will see, once people are still absorbing this all, people are not able to understand what has happened. It happened so quickly and in such a restrictive manner that a lot of people have not, they have not taken the shock yet. They're still in that shock, and they're still trying to understand what has been done. So the response has not come up. You have not had a response from people. Once that response is out, you will see that all these policies will fail, because people have not yet told you if they are welcoming these people, if this is okay to give, make Kashmiri people secondary citizens and make someone else a primary citizen of our land. So, degrading a state to union territory and then claiming it a victory is a false flag. You understand? It's not going to. It's a red flag. It's not going to. It's not going to do anything on ground. If it would have, where is the development? There were promises of development. They're not able to do development here on ground at all. There has not been an inch that has been developed. Rather, they should compensate for what plunder they have done. Our traders are,
yes, that's what I'm going to talk about. So I have a data here with me. From August of 2019, Kashmir has seen more than $3.5 billion losses, and that figure may or may not include the losses we have seen since the lockdown due to COVID-19 crisis. How deep you see this affecting a common Kashmiri on the ground?
I think we have to see through it. It's a strategy right now. It's not coincidental. Nothing is coincidental in Kashmir. It is planned. It is pre-planned by the right-wing government to make Kashmiris dependent on the federal union to accept the unilateral move. Because they couldn't politically make us agree. People politically rejected it, even if people are not with mainstream that much here, but even the mainstream, the people who were, known to be Indians, proper Indians, even they rejected this move, right? Because it was just one political party. It was in their agenda. Other political parties opposed it. So even the mainstream in Kashmir opposed it, right?
Right.
So now the Indian government made a strategy like how to make the people bend and make the people budge and listen to their diktats. So they came up with an economical destructive plan to make sure that people are dependent and agree to their terms, and that's how it is happening right now.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, there is so much unemployment that youth are forced to get these domicile rights certificates and sign up for them. If you look at the earlier data, it was more of Jammu people signing up. Kashmir did not, just 400 or 800 certificates. But now even Kashmir, because they have made it a clause in the recruitment policy that if you don't have this, you will not get a job.
Absolutely.
So people have to sign up in other ways. So these strategies where they're saying if you need something, you need to first compromise. So there will be political compromises. You have seen a lot of parties asking for statehood, not asking for special status, or Article 370 already has begun, because there has been a term. If you don't follow our terms, then we'll just put you back in jail, or will not bring you back in mainstream. We'll keep you away from power. So political parties are hungry for power. They do anything. So now they're all saying what BJP is saying. Yes, Amit Shah said we'll give you statehood back. So it shouldn't even be our demand. But if you look at all these politicians now, they're asking for statehood.
Yes.
Statehood is not even a question. Even if they give us the statehood back, domicile certificate will stay. Domicile law will stay.
It will stay. Absolutely.
It's not going. Yeah. Or Delhi has and will have a strong hold on Kashmir, or decisions that will come out from Kashmir when we don't have Article 370 or similar provisions.
And there were changes in the acts as well. 30 states acts were changed recently, so there will be completely hold at the center.
Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. Once your political autonomy is gone, your other autonomies or liberties are also gone.
True. Yeah. Viqar, my last question would be: in next 2 or 3 days, we'll be completing 1 year of abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. As a common Kashmiri, what do you see the way forward is for the entire Jammu and Kashmir?
See, Muzammil, I have told you earlier as well, there is a nuclear catastrophe in place that can happen anytime. Like, it's not like you have non-nuclear powers confronting on daily basis.
Absolutely.
You have border incursions or border rifts between two mighty powers in Southeast Asia. These are nuclear states, and it can escalate anytime. Last year, if you would have seen when that happened, those surgical strikes and Pulwama episode, we were on a brink of war within days, and it could have imploded and exploded in different ways, and there could have been all-out war, and possibly could have wiped, half of the world with it. So these two countries have to be very serious about Jammu and Kashmir. We are not a football game. We are people that are constantly suffering, dying, and getting killed, maimed, blinded, going into the deep alleys of poverty, and this has to be taken seriously, and these governments have to look at it with a human angle. rather than just looking at the territory.
Absolutely.
Should also look at the people that reside here and, recognize the aspirations and will of people as well and give us the right to decide our future. I think both countries lack democracy. Both of these countries are either run by dictators or by military setups. They have to, come on table like sincere, decent governments who resolve this dispute and once for all, like stop this hypocrisy and bigotry and seriously make attempts to resolve this issue. If you look at Kashmir, people still respect Mr. Vajpayee because he was one of those leaders who really wanted to resolve. Despite being from BJP, a right wing, still people respect that man because he was very serious about this. So I think there is lack of sincerity and seriousness in these governments. First, they have to restore democracies within their governments, within their countries, be it India or Pakistan. True democracies have to emerge from these two countries. Then I think this problem will get resolved. If they are not able to sit down and talk it out, then destruction. That's all I see. That's
Absolutely.
all I see.
I totally agree with you, and I hope that we may lead for a better and peaceful tomorrow if at all these two countries sit on one table and resolve Jammu and Kashmir.
And Muzammil, the most important thing is they have both never recognized the third stakeholder and the major stakeholder of this problem, that is the people of Kashmir.
Absolutely.
My last point here would be on your show, and I hope those people who listen to your podcast understand this, that Kashmir is a trilateral dispute. It's not a bilateral dispute.
Absolutely.
We Kashmiris are equal part of this dispute. Unfortunately, neither the UN or the international community ever recognized it. And in UN, you just have a bilateral resolution between Pakistan and India. It has never mentioned the people of Kashmir, who are the real sufferers of this dispute. So it is a disputed territory, but we Kashmiris are the people who should resolve this, who should decide the future, not the governments. They should facilitate the talks, but they should implement what Kashmiris want, not what these two governments want. There is a huge difference between what is being explored right now. That's why there is not a resolution, because people of Kashmir have never been on board with these governments, neither that government, neither this government. We have never been asked. Article 370 was revoked. Not a single Kashmiri was ever asked, what do you really want this to happen? So this is unconstitutional. This is undemocratic. It's not democratic at all. The world needs to understand that whatever is happening in Kashmir, whatever has happened in Kashmir was not democratic. So if the world supports India, it should first know if India is democratically doing things in Kashmir.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with you. This is a trilateral issue. Viqar, thank you so much for your time, and we hope to see you soon on Plain Talk again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Muzammil.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Alright guys, that's all from today's episode. We will be back with another one soon. And hey, you can also support my podcast by logging on to patreon.com/mmp. Thank you so much, and you have a great time ahead. This is your host Muzammil Mapur, signing off from Plain Talk.